Ladies and gentlemen, federal employees, today we're going to go over a common question I get all the time. And of course, because this is not a two-hour webinar, this is only a 10-minute video or podcast, we can't go over every small little detail that's going to apply in this situation, but it's going to get us pretty dang close. And it's going to give you an example as you're thinking over your retirement, your numbers, how to think about things, what things to think about and plan for, and we'll go from there. And actually, as a sneak peek, we just created a free webinar about the 7 biggest FERS retirement mistakes. I see a lot of people retire. I see a lot of retirement mistakes, especially for federal employees, that can kill people's retirement quicker than they can say, oops, right? So definitely check that out. I don't want you making those mistakes. The link is in the description below, and we'll dive in today's video. So I get questions all the time, emails, questions, comments like, hey, I am 62 or I'm 57. What, insert your age, right? I have X amount saved in the TSP. I have X amount saved here, wherever. Can I afford to retire? Okay. And it's interesting because I think some people think that just based on those 2 sentences, I can say, yes, you are deemed here worthy to retire, and you have enough money to do so. When in reality, I have no freaking clue when it comes to just those 2 sentences if someone can retire, right? So we're going to go over, okay, obviously for you want to know if you could retire. So what do you have to think about? Can you afford to retire? So we're going to do an example. Let's say someone is 62. Let's say they have $1 million saved in their TSP. Can they afford to retire? Let's do some rough numbers. Again, because this is 10 minutes long, I'm going to be ignoring and simplifying a lot of things, but for you, it'll get you started here. So the first place I like to start, before I even think about investment, so take your TSP and just ignore that for now. Let's ignore that. That's the last step of this process. Step number 1, what's your fixed income? What income is going to come every month without you doing a darn thing? For example, your first pension, right? Your first pension, or let's say you have a military retirement, or you have rental income, or you have a VA disability. What do you have? What do you have? What does your spouse have? Write it all down. What are those amounts? So let's just do an example. Let's say you got a FERS pension, okay? FERS pension. Let's say on an annual basis, let's say it is $20,000 net. Okay, why do I say net? Because your pension, just like everything in life, not everything, most things, is taxable. So you pay taxes, you're going to have health insurance premiums. A lot of things are going to come out of your pension before you actually see anything in your bank account. So first, check out my other videos on gross versus net on your pension, or I have a great one called What Your First Pension Will Actually Be. That's on the website. You can go Google search it. It'll show right up. But long story short, you want to find your net, okay? So let's say you have $20,000 net a year for your first pension. Great. Now let's look at Social Security, okay? Let's look at Social Security. Let's say between you and your spouse, let's say you guys have $40,000 net. Okay, now what comes out of Social Security gross? Well, you pay taxes on Social Security most of the time, up to 85% is taxable. And if you're on Medicare Part B premiums come out of Social Security, so you want to take those 2 things out for sure, and then get your net number, whatever that means for you. So let's add that up. Okay, what do you have? Well, you got $60,000 of net spendable dollars before we even look at your TSP, which is awesome. That's a great foundation to your retirement. But the next question, which is sometimes the hardest to answer, is how much do you want? How much do you need to retire and stay retired and do the retirement thing that you want, okay? So that's the number that you want to figure out, and there's a couple easier tricks to do it. I mean, you can look at your leave and earnings statement and say, okay, what's my net pay right now? Change it to an annual amount. So if you get paid every 2 weeks, take your net pay, times it by 26. That's how much you actually get in your bank account to live off of and do things on an annual basis, right? So get that number, get your annual number, and let's say it's $100,000. Let's say it's $100,000. You say, hey, look, net, I have $100,000 every year that I live off now, and that's probably what I want to live off in retirement. Now, if you have some grandiose retirement plans of spending way more in retirement than you do right now, well, that's a different story. You want to definitely keep that in mind if you have some grand plans, whether it's on massive travel plans or giving to charity or helping your kids, whatever it is. Put that into your plan. Make it work, right? So let's say you need $100K. You have $60K of fixed expenses or fixed income, which is amazing. Well, what needs to fill that gap? How do we get those 2 things together? How do we make those the same number? Well, your TSP, your investments now come into play, okay? So let me clean up my whiteboard. Now, if you're on the podcast, if you haven't been able to tell, I've been drawing on my fancy whiteboard on the YouTube channel. So you could definitely check that out if you want the visuals later. Okay. So again, now that I have a clean whiteboard, we're trying to make up a gap of $40,000. You have $60,000 of fixed income, and you want 100, right? Well, what do we have in our TSP? Well, we have 1 million. Right? Now, if you've seen in my other videos on the 4% rule and the TSP, go check those out. And there's a great video on how much your TSP can actually provide for you in retirement. Check that out if you want a full description on this, but I'm going to just do a summary right now. Long story short, you want to take whatever you have in your investments, times that by 4%, and that is how much it can provide for you every year for the rest of your life. Now, that's a very simplified answer. Go check out the other videos if you want the more in-depth, which is give you the nuance and the things you need to be watching out for. But with $1 million, to keep things simple, that comes out to $40,000 on an annual basis. But remember, that's gross. We haven't taken out taxes yet, right? Let's take out a chunk for taxes. And it's going to be hard to know exactly what taxes are going to be, but let's say it's 20%, right? So $40K turns to $32,000 of spendable dollars before you even touch it, right? So $32,000 is what that can provide. So if you add $32,000 to our fixed income, which we already had, which was $60,000, so $60,000 plus 32, right? Well, where do we get? Well, we are at $92,000 of net spendable dollars in retirement. And what was our goal? Well, our goal was $100,000. So we're not quite there. We're not quite there. So I wanted to walk you through this and just kind of talk through this example for a couple reasons. First, there's no magic age and TSP balance combination that is just magical, right? Obviously, the more you have in your TSP, the more money it can provide, which is amazing. But it all comes down to most likely the number you are looking to replicate in retirement. If someone has exactly this amount of income where they have $92,000, but they only need $60,000 worth of income, well, they could have retired a while ago. They could have retired a long time ago. But if you say, hey, no, I actually want $120,000 a year to spend, 130, 40, whatever it is, well, then, hey, you may have to work longer. You may have to save more. You may have to do all these things. It's just a combination of where are you at? What standard of living are you used to? And what do you want in retirement? What income sources do you have? And obviously, I'm simplifying a lot of things. There's a lot of things we got to get right. But this hopefully gives you just a snapshot of, okay, if someone is a certain age with a TSP, they could be in a great spot, but maybe not. It really depends on the nuances. So I hope that's helpful. If you have any questions, comments yourself, please put in the comments below. And we do our best to create future videos and podcasts and content about those questions that you submit below. So again, there is a link below to our 100% free webinar about the 7 biggest retirement mistakes I see federal employees make every single day. And they are killers, retirement killers, so I don't want you to make those mistakes. Definitely check that out. You have an incredible rest of your day. We'll talk soon.